So here we are in chapter 11, and Levin and Stiva gathered for a late afternoon lunch before Levin has agreed to go off to see Kitty and her family. So Levin is meeting with Stiva, and they're eating and drinking and discussing life and women and marriage. So this is chapter 11. Levin emptied his glass, and they were silent for a while. There's another thing I ought to tell you. Do you know Vronsky? Stiva asked. No, I don't. Why do you ask? Give us another bottle, Stiva directed the Tartar, who was filling up their glasses and fidgeting around them just when he was not wanted. Why, you ought to know Vronsky, because he's one of your rivals. Who's Vronsky? Said Levin, and his face was suddenly transformed from the look of childlike ecstasy, which Oblonsky had just been admiring, to an angry and unpleasant expression. Now you can read.
Yeah, I was wondering if you mind if I call Levin. I don't know why, but apparently in Russia we spell it a little bit different. I don't know again why, and if I'm correct or not. But yeah, you understand that we mean the same person. Yeah, Vronsky is one of the sons of Count Kirill Ivanovich Vronsky and one of the finest specimens of the gilded youth of Petersburg. I made his acquaintance there when I was there on official business, and he came there for the levy of recruits. Fearfully rich, handsome, great connections, an aide-de-camp, and with all that, a very nice, good-natured fellow. But he is more than simply a good-natured fellow, as I have found out here. He is a cultivated man too, and very intelligent. He is a man who will make his mark. Levin scowled and was dumb. Do you want to take over now?
Well, he turned up here soon after you'd gone, and as far as I could see, he's head over heels in love with Kitty. And you know that her mother? Excuse me, but I know nothing, said Levin, frowning gloomily. And immediately he recollected his brother Nikolai and how loathsome he was to have been able to forget him. Wait a minute, said Stiva, smiling and touching his hand. Now just notice through this whole thing how many times a smile is used. There's so many different kinds of smiles. Smiling and touching his hand. I've told you what I know. I repeat that in this delicate and tender matter, as far as one can judge, I believe the chances are in your favor. Levin dropped back in his chair. His face was pale. But I would advise you to settle the thing as soon as possible, Oblonsky went on, filling up his glass. No, thanks, I can't drink any more, said Levin, pushing away the glass. I shall be drunk. Come on, how are you getting on? It was obvious that he wanted to change the conversation.
Yeah, would you like maybe a comment or two on what we've just read?
I'm just going to pause and just whatever you want to say, or whenever there's a pause, just make comments.
I kinda have some sort of pity for Levin because he's just been disappointed in his best intentions or feelings or dreams. I don't know. About how he's the only one for Kitty who apparently have a rival suitor in the face of Vronsky. How does that make you feel?
I agree. I agree. There's a lot. There are many great things about Tolstoy as a writer, but one of the things I like is how he's able to really capture the world of emotions, because, as you know, our emotions kind of can change pretty quickly. And, Levin has gone on this dinner. He doesn't really like super expensive restaurants, and he's sitting there letting Stiva order all this food and all this drink, and, it's also expensive, and Levin is such a practical man, but he's there because, Steva seems to have the inside track on what's going on with Kitty, and Levin's just trying to unburden his heart and just talk about how, well, he's thinking of maybe asking Kitty to marry him. And meanwhile, Steva is just going on with all this food and all this drink, and Levin is kind of, when I use the word pathetic, in a nice way, he's just there, like crushed. He's been crushed. And now he's already agreed to go to, see the family. And how is he going to show up now with this news that there's this dashing fellow who's his competitor?
Yeah, I know we've skipped chapter 10, where Steva told Levin that his wife kind of forecasted, or she was sort of an oracle, and she said that Levin will marry Kitty, and Levin was absolutely excited about his future. And here he comes. He has to be disappointed because Steva told him exactly the opposite, that there is a suitor and which is out of his league, and Levin basically has no chances. I don't know why Steva did that, because he could have imagined which kind of effect it will have on Levin, being the man himself. But we have what we have. And
well, the other thing is that Steva is giving Levin news that he really needs to know, because Levin shouldn't just go in there thinking that he's the top dog. He's actually letting his friends know, hey, there's some other guy, swirling around. I don't think that Steva knows how heavy the news is. I think that Steva just says, by the way, you need to do this. And then also he says to Levin, one more word of advice. Tonight, I don't advise you to speak. Go around in the morning and make an offer. So Steva is much more worldly and more experienced with women and dancing and courting and all this. And so Steva specifically advises Levin, don't go tonight, go in the morning. But we see that Levin doesn't follow that advice. But yes, there's this premonition from the previous chapter that somehow Levin is going to get together with Kitty. So there are these various little hints at what might happen, and we're only like on page 46, 48 of the novel, and those of you that are holding the novel in your hand, it's quite hefty. And so I think that Tolstoy draws the reader in and really, captures my attention. Yes. Okay. Well, let's see what else happens. Now his whole soul was filled with remorse that he had begun this conversation with Steva. A feeling such as his was profaned by the talk of the rivalry of some Petersburg officer, of the suppositions and the counsels of Steva. Steva smiled. He knew what was going on in Levin's soul. I'll come someday, he said, but women, my boy, they're the pivot everything turns upon. Things are in a bad way with me, very bad, and it's all through women. Now, tell me frankly. He cursed and picked up a cigar and keeping one hand on the glass. Give me your advice. So now Steva is asking Levin for some advice.
Yeah, he's saying that things are bad with him because probably with all the story with his own governess, he had an affair with. And Levin, I don't remember, is Levin aware of what happened by now, or is it still a secret to him?
I think he's getting ready to reveal it. Yeah, this is what we're going to find out here.
Yeah.
We continue with chapter 11. But why don't you go ahead and read, because there's a little bit of German. Just read through all the way through the German part.
Okay. Why? What is it? Oh, obviously Levin did not know of the fact. I will tell you. Suppose you're married, you love your wife, but you're fascinated by another woman. Excuse me, I'm absolutely unable to comprehend how, just as I can't comprehend how I could now, after my dinner, go straight to a baker's shop and steal a roll. Stepan Arkadyevich's eyes sparkled more than usual. And why not? A roll will sometimes smell so good, one cannot resist it. And then here comes the German part. Himmlisch ist's, wenn ich bezwungen meine irdische Begier, aber doch wenn's nicht gelungen, hat ich auch recht hübsch Pläsier. As he said this, Stepan Arkadyevich smiled subtly. Levin too could not help smiling. Apparently they both knew German, right?
Yes, I guess so.
Because everybody spoke French at the time. I don't know, maybe German too.
Well, I think some of them were schooled in French and German because, as we recall, when the three sisters are introduced, Levin was telling that when he used to go visit the house, sometimes when they were younger, sometimes they would be French lessons, sometimes they'd be doing their German lessons. So I think learning a couple languages was just, and then learning a little bit of music, it was just part of how, this class of people was raised.
Mm. Yeah, that most likely how it was. I wonder if it's still the case. But do you know what that means? The German part.
I have a translation of it down here. I was going to read it. It's from a poem by Heine. It is heavenly whenever I mastered my earthly desire, but whenever I did not succeed, I still took my pleasure.
Well, that sounds selfish.
Well, this is just men being men.
Well, if you think this part is about women, do you think it's about women? Or generally about pleasures?
Appetite. It's about men's appetite, and they're at a dinner, and then Levin is one kind of man. So Stiva is talking about, women and eating and your wife and another beautiful woman, and Stiva is trying to explore with Levin. Well, I'm married, but then there's this other woman that came along, and then Levin says, we've just had this huge dinner. I couldn't imagine leaving this huge dinner and then going by the bakery and smelling a delicious roll. So that the delicious roll is the metaphor for a new woman. And then Stiva comes back with, well, of course, there's always so many women to be tasted. And then he quotes, from the poem, the German poem. So to me, this is about, it's about men at a dinner table, and they're talking about marriage and what should you do with your carnal desires. And Levin says, well, I couldn't imagine such a thing.
Just came into my mind that Levin couldn't imagine that because he hadn't been married before. Had he been married, or had on his place we had any other married man, they would have understood each other in no time. But Levin, he didn't go through this yet, and that's why he's unable to comprehend these subcontexts, if you wish.
Yeah, I think so, and I think that every marriage, whether it's short or whether it's long, or whether it ends in divorce or whether it ends in other sad situations, I think that the couple always starts off on their best foot. They imagine a whole life together, and then they have some kind of small or large ceremony with flowers and rings and music and food, and everybody starts off with the highest of hopes. And so I think another great thing about this novel is that Tolstoy explores so many different types of love and attraction and what to do in this situation, that situation. I mean,
Yeah, but not to change the subject, but while sitting here and speaking about this, I think that he didn't mention, Tolstoy didn't mention in his novel of what I'm going to say, because my view of marriage is it's always been a business transaction. And maybe if I'm wrong, because I could be wrong, right? Just me. Maybe also it's just something we don't understand, because the nature wants to reproduce the next generation with better qualities, more immune to the dangers of life. And once you have kids, and this is how you explain basically the wheel of pleasure or whatever it is when you meet a partner. You think, oh, this is the soulmate, or whomever I'll spend the whole my life until death do us part. But the nature tricks you here, because she wants kids, and once kids are born, you became strangers to each other, because nature don't care about you anymore, because the purpose, I mean the aim, the goal has been achieved. Kids are born, and they've been raised, and the next generation again becomes new goal.
And then you become quite often. I'll just say that in Dallas, there are any number of, I'm going to call them, 40, 45-year-old guys. They have good jobs. They have big houses. They have a couple of cars. They have beautiful dogs. They have money. And they escape with a couple of their friends to a bar or someplace, and you'll just hear them talking about how the only thing they do is work all the time. Only thing their wife wants is more things and more money and more stuff for the kids. And like, I even heard this guy, this was like right before the pandemic, saying like, what happened to that beautiful girl I married? I'm like now married to a monster. So this would be a modern example of this couple. I mean, I don't even know who they were. I just overheard this conversation. 3 or 4 guys, that they've got a couple kids now. They've got their house payment. They have a lake house. They have several cars. I mean, now they are considered. They just make the money to fuel this machine called marriage. And many of them are looking around just for someone that thinks that they're handsome or cute, or doesn't want anything from them other than just a few hours of having fun.
Yeah, it's tragic. I think it's really tragic for men.
It is, and also as I am very much very much in favor of women becoming educated, becoming doctors, lawyers, having their own businesses, but nowadays women don't need men. And in Dallas, I'm not sure how it is where you live, but in Dallas is run by the women. Women are killing men.
You know what? Funny. Just I've come across this video on YouTube the other day where pandemic killed every man on earth, and what was left, women only. And they started to women only, and they reproduce. I guess they have a lottery of some kind who will reproduce when. And I couldn't watch it any longer. I was like, make me throw up. But maybe I should have seen it all the way through.
No, you're right about that. The other thing is that the pandemic put incredible stress on every kind of relationship. It put stress on mothers and daughters. It put stress on boyfriend and girlfriend. It put stress on fathers and sons, and on marriages, and also people trying to get married because you were trapped with your loved one for at least 18 months. Like, almost 2 years is what happened in Houston and Dallas and some of the places that I'm familiar with. So, money was under pressure, and relationship was under pressure, and you like to see your significant other, but not all the time. You like to at least go out for coffee. Now people are working from home, just like trapped with this person that they love. It really messed up a lot of people. And I talked to this friend of mine who's a therapist, and I was saying, well, what do you see going on, in Dallas? She said, she just keeps getting call after call after call for like not marriage counseling, but like referral for a divorce lawyer. Like, so many divorces, so many divorces.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
No, when you said the word trap, I thought that's how paradise becomes hell.
Yeah.
When you're trapped 18 months with your soulmate in the house.
No, exactly. The other thing is like the little things that used to annoy you, like some people at the breakfast table, they don't like to hear the other person chewing, or they don't like it when the other person comes to breakfast not dressed very nicely. So any little small thing that used to bother you,
Oh yeah,
and you
yeah.
actually
Also, let's not forget about toothpaste cups. Because God forbid you forget to put it back. You never do that.
yes, exactly. Somebody was telling me who lives up in the New York area. She was saying, I came to breakfast and he was wearing that same T-shirt. I said, what do you mean? She said, I hate that T-shirt. I go, what do you mean? He said, every time he wears that T-shirt, I just want to kill him. As I explored it, the the husband had like a favorite yellow T-shirt he loved to wear, like just a favorite. It was a band that he used to be in, or his friend was in a band or something. It was like just like a T-shirt there at home. Somehow the T-shirt became like the toothpaste cap.
Yeah.
Like she wanted to strangle him just because.
And like a red flag with the bull. In Spain they have this competition between a toreador, they call it toreador, I don't know how to translate that to English, and the bull.
The run of the bull.
Yeah. And this T-shirt could have been used as a red whatever it is they use it. Red flag for the bull. But
The other thing is in this whole chapter that we're reading right now, Levin doesn't. He probably has some experience with women, but he doesn't have experience with married life, which involves a house,
exactly,
people in the
exactly.
house, and then the car or the horse or whatever. So anybody can have fun if you're not married.
Absolutely.
I was talking with some young people who were going to Spain on a train about 5 years ago, and all these different couples were going to Spain on a train. They were all, early 30, or, 27, 28, 29. And, well, of course, you're in Spain, you're with some good-looking guy or beautiful girl, like, anybody could have fun, but, like, put that same guy in a house and try to negotiate finances and the mother-in-law and when are you having a kid, who's stopping work, it becomes a dang nightmare. It becomes a nightmare.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really sad because we all, we're all trying, right? Aren't we?
We all tried, and we don't know. We don't understand how it works. It's so simple, but we don't. We've never been told, and when we understand, it's too late.
That's true, and also people advise us. I remember that when I was rather young, my mother advised. She was a society woman who came from an established family, and she advised me when I go to college, go find a man who has land. Your goal in college is to find a rancher. Like my goal in college was to go study like French classics and read Russian novels and, pretend that I'm not in Texas. My goal in going to college was to get an education. My mother's advice to me was find a man with land. Now, right now, from the perspective of age, I'm not sitting on a huge ranch. I'm in an apartment in Dallas. But, we can't understand the advice that people give us. I mean, when you were younger, and did you have like uncles or aunts or anybody that just in general gave you advice? I mean, you don't have to say anything specific, but did you listen to the advice of your elders?
No, of course not. It's like buying a book how to Dale Carnegie, how to become how to whatever it is, to have friends and how to become successful, how to become a millionaire. If that was the solution to our problems, everyone would be a millionaire just because he read through this book. But first of all, even if you read this book through or listen to advice, you wouldn't be able to process it. That's the conundrum of the situation that you hear and you see, but you don't understand. Also, it's all in front of you.
Exactly.
It just you're being like your eyes shut. I don't know how to explain that, but somehow there is a block.
No, I hear you. Well, the next little part, Steva explains the situation to Levin. He says, joking aside, you must understand that the woman is sweet, gentle, a loving creature, poor and lonely. She sacrificed everything. Now, when the thing's done, this is the girl who's gotten with it.
Yeah, the English governess.
Don't you see? Can one possibly cast her off, even supposing one parts from her so as not to break up your family life? Can one help feeling for her, setting her on her feet, softening her position? Well, you must excuse me there. You know, to me, all women are divided into two classes. At least, no, truer to say, there are women, and there are, well, I've never seen exquisite fallen beings. I shall never see them. But such creatures as that painted French woman at the counter with the ringlets are vermin to my mind, and all fallen women are the same. So here Levin explains that there are only good women and fallen women. That's Levin.
Yeah, he meant prostitutes probably. Well, that's why the Steva in the next chapter he says, "How about the Magdalene?" He means Mary Magdalene, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and Levin says, and Levin says, drop that. Christ would never have said those words if he had known how they would be abused. Of all the gospel, those words are the only ones remembered. However, I'm not saying so much what I think as what I feel. I have a loathing for fallen women. You're afraid of spiders, and I of these vermin. Most likely you've not made a study of spiders. I don't know their character, and so it is with me. So apparently Levin have never had an experience with the fallen woman. But then again, why? What kind of sins he could have had? In his past, I don't understand. Anyway, it's very well for you to talk like that. That is, Steva says. It's very much like that gentleman in Dickens who used to fling all difficult questions over his right shoulder. But to deny the facts is no answer. What's to be done? Again, what's to be done here? You tell me that. What is to be done? Your wife gets older. Well, you're full of life. Full of life, yeah. Before you have time to look around, you feel that you can't love your wife with love, however much you may esteem her. And then, all at once, love turns up, and you're done for. You're done for. Stepan Arkadyevich said with very despair. So that's just two men talking to each other. One says how he despises fallen women, and another is, kind of talking about his own problems. How he messed with the governess and how he really loved her. I believe he loved her. He didn't love because of this affair. He didn't love Dolly less than he loved her before. Maybe he loved her even more. But still, he had to take care of this English governess who's now lost her job probably. I don't know where she is.
Right. Well, the other thing is that Steva says, all at once, love turns up. Well, love turned up, but he did take action. Now Levin half smiles. Yes, you're done for, but what's to be done? Levin's response is, don't steal the roles. Stephen laughed. Oh, moralist, but you must understand there are two women. One woman insists on her rights, and those rights are your love, which you can't give her. And the other one sacrifices everything for you. That's the prostitute or the and asks for nothing. Well, what are you to do? How are you to act? There's a fearful tragedy in it. If you care for my profession of faith as regards to that, I'll tell you that I don't believe there was any tragedy. And this is why. To my mind, love, both kinds of love, which, remember, Plato defines in his Symposium, serve as a test for men. Some men only understand one kind and some the other. And those who know only non-platonic love have no need to talk of tragedy. In such love there is no tragedy. I'm much obliged for the gratification of my humble respects. Well, that's the whole tragedy. In platonic love, there can be no tragedy because in that love, all is clear and pure. So Levin earlier, when he saw Kitty at the skating rink, sees her like with light shining around her. He elevates her to this ideal woman. Like Kitty's just a pretty young girl who's just arrived in the dating or social world. But when Levin, puts her on this pedestal of this fabulous, amazing, perfect woman, and Levin lives in the world of ideals, like ideal honesty, ideal integrity, ideal women. And he left some of the political stuff of the city because he's just like fed up with corruption. So Levin is a bit of an idealist. And then Levin recalled his own sins and his own inner conflict, and he added, well, perhaps you're right, very likely. I don't know. It's this, don't you see, Steve said. You're very much all of one piece. That's your strong point in your feelings. You have a character that's all of a piece, and you want the whole of life to be a piece too. But that's not how it is. You despise public work because you want the reality to be invariably corresponding all the while with the aim, and that's not how it is. You want a man's work always to have a defined aim and love and family life, always to be undivided, and that's not how it is. All the variety, all the charm, all the beauty of life is made up of light and shadow. That's great writing.
Again, they don't listen to each other. I'm thinking that Levin recollected his own sins. At the same time, what sins could that be? He'd never been with the fallen woman, and he thinks that Kitty is the ideal of his, a woman. But then again, I don't know what his sins could be. Levin sighed and made no reply. He was thinking of his own affairs and didn't hear Oblonsky. See, they don't understand each other. And suddenly both of them felt that though they were friends, though they had been dining and drinking together, which should have drawn them closer, yet each was thinking only of his own affairs and they had nothing to do with one another. Oblonsky had more than once experienced this extreme sense of aloofness instead of intimacy, coming on after dinner, and he knew what to do in such cases. Well, that I know. I know what that's all about. I've experienced that myself. Bill, he called, and he went into the next room where he promptly came across an aide-de-camp of his acquaintance and dropped into conversation with him about an actress and her protector. Sorry, you tell me, I don't know how to explain that, but somehow there is this divide which you thought you in person you talked to have this something in common, something very large, something very very, very common to both of you, and then you understand that this common is over. Suddenly, there is no more. And then
you just want to get out of the place as soon as possible.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, and if you had that experience, you know what to do. But if you don't, you'd be aggravating the situation further. But luckily, Steven knew what to do. And at once, in the conversation with the aide-de-camp, Oblonsky had a sense of relaxation and relief after the conversation with Levin, which always put him to too great a mental and spiritual strain. Would you like to read the last paragraph?
The Tatar appeared with the bill for 26 rubles and odd kopecks, besides a tip for himself. Levin, who, like anyone from the country, would another time have been horrified at his share of 14 rubles, didn't notice, paid it, and set off homeward to dress, to go to the Sherbatskys, there to decide his fate.
It's like you going to New York City and then you'd have to pay your share of $200. You'd be horrified. But if you deep into some kind of thought which overwhelms your conscious, you wouldn't even notice how much you paid.
Right. You just pay, just get the heck out of it.
Right.
It's really a complex chapter. I think it's very rich. I've read this novel off and on over the years, and I'm starting to have just a little respect for Steva. Generally I don't much care for him, but here, he's trying to explain things. He's trying to explain himself. Like, I think he's being rather honest with Levin, and he's being honest with himself. And in this chapter, I gained a little bit of respect for Steva.
Yeah, well, thank you. It was a pleasure reading it with you. So many chapters in it, it could have been a marathon if we read them all through. But yeah, maybe we'll pick one or another next time and then see what it's about.
Okay, au revoir for now.